Let's explore the documentation, or the API, of our ActionScript 3 programming language. And then we can see where that hitTest object function comes from. So we could Google AS3, this stands for ActionScript 3. Whenever you're looking up anything ActionScript, you can type AS3. You type the class name you're searching for, or something you want to look up. And then you type API, Application Programming Interface. Usually the first thing that comes up when you search for those keywords will be our API reference. It's at adobe.com, or help.adobe.com. APIs look like this. At first they might be a little bit confusing, but they will soon make a lot of sense. APIs are the directions for your programming language. You have to learn how to read an API to use a programming language properly. So let's look at our movie clip class. We inherited or we extended from our movie clip, so we are movie clip, so we have access to everything in here. Here's our properties, or variables. We can get the current frame of our movie clip. We can see how many frames are loaded. We can see if it's playing. We can see the total frames of our movie clip. Here's our movie clip constructor. Here's our add child. We can add children to our movie clip. And let's go down, 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 and actually you might have to click open or show inherited public methods if this isn't clicked. Remember to click on show inherited methods so we can see all the methods we have access to when we're a movie clip. And if you scroll down, we'll finally come to the method called hitTestObject. Notice our hitTestObject, it shows what type of parameters. It returns it needs an argument when you call this function of type displayObject, which is movie clip. A movie clip is a display object, and I'll show you that in 1 second. Its return type of this function is Boolean, meaning a true or false value. And it describes or defines or tells us what this function does, evaluates the bounding box as a display object to see if it overlaps or intersects with the bounding box of the OBJ display object, so the one that we're sending in is the parameter. So it checks to see if the movie clip calling this function is touching the movie clip that we send in as the parameter. It comes from class displayObject. Let's go back up to the top here and look at our movie clip. It shows our inheritance structure here. Here's our movie clip class. This is the one we're looking at. You can read these arrows or interpret these arrows as the words is a. A movie clip is a sprite. A sprite is a display object container. Is a interactive object is a display object. That's where our hitTest function came from. It is a event dispatcher, and it is a object. Object is the Adam and Eve of all objects. All objects extend from the class object. So let's go back up in our inheritance structure and look at the displayObject API reference. We scroll down and we see that in his public methods we have our hitTestObject function. If you want to learn more about this function, you click on that function. It shows you the function header again. It talks about its parameters. It talks about its return type. And it even gives you a very helpful example. So in this example, it shows you that there is a shape object called Circle1, and it fills it, and it draws it, and it adds it to the stage. And it makes another shape object called Circle2, and it fills it, and it draws it, and it sets its X value and adds it to the stage. It makes a third circle, and it fills it, and it draws it, and it sets its X and Y value and adds it to the screen. And then it tests to see if those objects are touching each other. So here's where it's using the function. Here's our first object, Circle1. It's calling the function. And inside of this is its parameter, or now what's called an argument. This argument takes on the value of the parameter, obj. And it tests to see if circle 1 is touching circle 2, which is true. We know it's true because circle 1 was drawn 40 pixels by 40 pixels. So, and we can see object 2 was drawn the same shape, and that it was only moved over 50 pixels, so those two shapes were indeed overlapping. And if you were to copy and paste this code into your program, you would see that those two circles were overlapping. The second call tests to see if circle 1 touches circle 3, which is false because circle 3 is way down at the bottom. No, not way down. A little bit down further. And then circle 2 hitting circle 3 was true because circle 2 is drawn a little bit down, or a little bit to the right, where they would be overlapping. Oops, right here. Now remember that this tests the bounding box of our objects, so it's the shape around our objects. There's another function here you might want to explore called hit test point, which is a little bit more exact in where our objects are touching each other. Remember that the best way to learn a programming language is to read about these functions, look at the examples. You can even test out these examples by copying and pasting inside of your Flash, and then seeing how they work. So just if I wanted to learn about the hit test point, I could Command C and copy this code. I could then go over to Flash, Professional, make a new file. Just make a new ActionScript file. That's okay. I could then go to my Actions panel. Remember, this panel is not showing. So, Actions. You can then paste this code in there. Save it. So I'll save it as test. I can then run this code. It's all very runnable. And I could see this code executing. I could look at the output. Oops. I could then look at my output on my output screen here. And I could see how that code is working. That's the best way to learn code, is to grab code like that, go ahead and test it, read about it, and then I bet you could get it working if you wanted to hit or check for an exact hit point if two objects were hitting each other.